So the various heads of the country's law enforcement agencies have been meeting this month. They've come together basically to try and better efforts at fighting crime in South Africa. One of the solutions or interventions that have been suggested, if you will, or areas where they think they can be improved collaboration is around bringing in communities to help in crime prevention and the response to acts of crime. But it's been a very difficult time for community policing forums because just recently at the Marry Me informal settlement, community patrollers were killed, allegedly by known criminals. Arrests have been made in that case. But let's have a look at the broader picture in Gauteng in terms of fighting crime and the involvement of communities. Bring in TJ Masilela, Chairman of the Gauteng Province's Community Police Board. Good to have you on the program this evening, sir. Thank you for your time. So when, for example, as higher up in government as the president, there's a conversation about involving communities in prevention and detection of crime, how well would community policing forums have to perform in order to reach that goal?
Now, thank you very much. I take this opportunity to say that I was fortunate to also present at the summit, the police summit. The collaboration, integration approach that the president is talking about, it also includes the business, but importantly, the technology, and obviously the well-being of the members or the law enforcement. That will be obviously the human resources. There is a need right now, and this is the best time one will think that with so much collaborations and MOUs signed and trying to reach to business and business committed through the Business Against Crime, that this collaboration with community participation is more needed than before right now. So one would hope and pray that we just don't talk about it now, we actually practice it.
But how do you resource community policing forums to ensure that they're able to do their work effectively, TJ? And I ask that question in the context of the very different socioeconomic setup in townships versus people in the suburbs, right? So if you live in the suburbs, there's probably a WhatsApp group with your neighbors. If you live in an estate, there is a security company, private security, that you pay for. But if you live in a township, it is the CPFs operating with very little resources who then have to respond.
Oh, yes. Basically, the technology that we're talking about, that must reach especially the townships and the TISH areas, which is township informal settlement and hostels and so forth. We're talking about the expanding this kind of technology. You would know that people in your informal settlement they used to use what you call whistles when they raise alert or conveying intelligence. Now you are looking at the personal alarms, you're looking at the free panic buttons with no cost, you're looking at push-to-talk radios for patrollers on the ground. You're also looking at soft panics so that if there's intelligence that must be transmitted. But we're also looking at joint operation command center of the CPFs so that members of the community also can assist in bringing that technology or information through that. I think the old way of just doing the patrols in the community will be now used, also including the cameras that are now should be installed in the TISH areas. Some have already been installed. You would know the Premier of Gauteng spoken about these cameras, 6,000 that comes from Vuma Cams. So we're seeing a new way, which is needed, by the way, if you have to address a crime. And if you have to make some kind of impact. So we're looking forward to spending the funding that we're getting to enhance the technology, and obviously appealing to your tech and comms companies to come to the fore. We are happy with the progress we have made with Comri. Yeah.
But that's great as a concept, TJ. There's also the other unanswered part, though, in the response, because you've got, for instance, communities where people don't even have basics like street names. You've got that then means even if, for example, I press the panic button, who's going to come and respond when they don't even know what street I'm on, for instance. So that solution only answers part of the problem, doesn't it?
That's true. I think after the Mary Me incident and other incident in Stratla, there is now an effort to market but also promote the CPF in those areas so that people, because you'll find that the communities do organize themselves in some committees, but those committees that don't reach out to the bigger community police relations. So it says to me and you now, we should also participate in making sure that in our communities, whether being in a formal settlement where there's no address, but these panics are also GPS located. Let's also talk about personal safety. We're also talking about personal alarms, Memeza alarms, that in your informal settlement in the areas of most in the township, they will utilize this whistles even before. So you are just upgrading that into the personal. But it's important also to emphasize that personal safety becomes also very important, right. Knowing your neighbors, knowing your committees, knowing your ward committees and so forth is also very important, also including the committees that you have in informal settlement and the hostels.
You referenced Marry Me. We were told at the time that the community patrollers were killed, that theirs wasn't a registered structure, because you're supposed to, am I right, TJ, to, for example, make the local police station aware of your presence. Where I'm going with this is, it's one thing to know your neighbors, but the criminals also now in some areas seem to know who's involved in the policing forums, right? And the other part of what I'm trying to talk to you about is regarding the trust, the relationship between police and the communities that they're supposed to protect. That has broken down in areas where there are rampant levels of crime. And that, am I right in saying, would need to be healed first in order for any of the bigger objectives to succeed?
Corruption has actually added so much strain into this kind of relationships. But also, you're right, you're correct. I think the emphasis starts with the perception, which after that it becomes a reality. It's very important that you start and there is a commitment from the South African Police Service and unions. One must also mention that unions that we're participating also have come out now to say, look, we're not going to defend members of the corrupt members of the law enforcement. Instead, we will actually expose them. We will have to see that, but one can just hope that some of this we should see these happenings in the near future. We need to start by harnessing the relationships while at the same time integrating the technology and rolling out that.
TJ Masilela, good to talk to you, Chairman of the Gauteng Province's Community Police Board. Good to have your time on SABC News tonight.
Thank you very much.